Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. Nick Suss of the Tennessean. I am Braden Gall, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I am very excited about the show today, Nick, more so than usual because football players wearing pads did football things this week on a football field, and it feels a little bit, Nick, like football season.
A little bit. Everybody's in pads. I'm still in shells. That joke was totally set up. If you're not watching this, Braden is laughing hysterically that I didn't tell him I was going to lead with that joke. I have totally won the day, and we're 1 minute and 7 seconds in. You guys are impressed by the depth of my humor. Braden, let's talk football.
It was clever. You're not allowed to make dad jokes yet. Like legally, I don't believe that you're allowed to do that.
My personality has been dad jokes since I was 7.
Yeah, I know. All right. Morning, Eddie. Good to see you. Lots of stuff to do today on the show. Obviously, you and I were joking at camp the last couple of days, like, well, we got to talk about Cam. How do we keep the conversation around Cam to less than all of the show is sort of the problem today. So we're going to talk Cam. I think Jeffery Simmons is a big storyline already. And I think having talked to a few players over the last couple of days, and I know you did some work on sort of the strategy versus tactics, the granular versus the big picture when it comes to practicing. And I know you're working on some of that, so we'll hear Chig's answer on that, and then we'll talk a little bit through sort of what you see and how the team is developing on sort of a granular level and then a big picture level at the same time. I had a chance to chat with Nicole's about how they thread practices together. And I think there's a new attitude, potentially, at least so far, that I think is worth discussing around Simmons and some of the other veterans on the team. We'll discuss that. But we got to talk Cam because the offense has struggled. And the last couple of days, not great, but by design. So I think it's important to have as much context as possible around some of the analysis that's out there around training camp so far and Cam Ward in particular. So lots of fun stuff to do today on the show. Obviously, Sinkers Beverages, they have a 40th birthday party coming up on August 9th. That's 2 Saturdays from now. It is Tomato Fest. Have you ever been to Tomato Fest?
I have.
Good. I have a shirt that looks much like your shell shirt, that is all tomatoes. And so I'm excited. Tomato Fest, rite of passage in East Nashville. It's a great time Friday night and Saturday. But after you've had some Bloody Marys and hung out in the parade and watched my kids throw candy at you at the Tomato Fest parade on Saturday, at 5:30, you can walk down the street, literally like 2 blocks to Basement East. And for $10, all the money goes to charity. You can come hang out with us and celebrate Sinkers Beverages' 40th birthday party. There's going to be music, food, booze, giveaways, raffles, all kinds of fun stuff. It's going to be great. 2 Saturdays from now. Are you coming out to Tomato Fest?
I think I will be in Tampa Bay for a preseason NFL football game. But I will say, took me 31 years.
We can invite your wife. We can invite your wife.
She might go. She loves Tomato Fest. It took me 31 years of telling bad jokes, but I finally did have somebody literally throw a tomato at me a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
It did happen.
Caveat,
he's about 18 months old.
Oh, that doesn't count.
A ball,
that doesn't count.
But he did throw a tomato at me. So it has happened. I have had a tomato thrown at me after telling a bad joke.
Again, as to quote the great Nick Suss, I'm not funny. I'm just very clever.
Very clever.
All right. So lots of stuff. Team Ramrod 27 says, I forgot to dry clean my suit for Cam Ward's career funeral. Look, again, this is all right. Let's get into it. First, the commentary that Paul and I had on Monday's show, I would carry to today, and I just want to make sure that the point is driven home. That my issue with the reaction to the practice on Saturday is going to be the same issue I have with the reaction to the bad practices the last 2 days, which is it's all over reacting. And Cam has said this. Like, Cam is like, no, you can't get too high, you can't get too low, you got to stay right here. Anything you think about Cam Ward, you shouldn't have changed your opinion right now. Your opinion should not have changed about what you've seen so far in practice. The good on Saturday, if you thought it was that great, I didn't think it was that great. I thought it was solid. I thought it was a B+ day. If you're doing the ABC throws, right, I thought it was a B+ practice. He's had 3 C's before and after that, 2 this week and 1 on Thursday, and then maybe a B practice on Wednesday last week. None of that should change your evaluation of Cam Ward. he's going to throw interceptions because they want him to throw interceptions in a weird way in practice to some degree. Maybe not like on purpose, but like, you know what I'm saying? And so I think the most important point here is don't change what you think of Cam Ward based on what has happened in 5 practices, only 2 of which have had pads on.
So I'm trying not to be a victim of any moment, but my main message I want to give here is don't get the idea that you shouldn't overreact. Don't let that get in the way of reacting. It is okay to react. Just because we shouldn't overreact doesn't mean we should write all of this off as it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
We have to be blunt. The last 2 practices we've seen, practice on Tuesday, practice on Wednesday, not good.
Do you think that's why they added a practice tomorrow?
It could be a contributing factor.
Okay.
All I'm going to say is fundamentally, if we take it from the perspective of, oh, he's a guy who's always going to throw picks. Oh, he's a guy who's done this in college. Oh, he's a guy who has a learning curve. Yes, we know that. We understand this. But we also have to comment on the fact that if it was looking smooth, if it was all this great stuff, we'd be reacting to it. We wouldn't be overreacting to it, but we'd be reacting to it. So we need to react to what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about what we're seeing because it is important. Just because it shouldn't change the way you feel about Cam Ward,
right?
Let's not diminish the fact that Cam Ward having 5 balls tipped and 4 balls intercepted over a span of 2 days.
4 different players.
Yeah. Let's not diminish the fact that yesterday I asked Cam Ward, how do you know the difference between something that you've done since you're 6, so it's going to keep working, and something you've done since you're 6 and you need to change it because it's a new level of football? And he totally avoided the question.
Did not answer the question.
This is not to be critical of him. This is not to overreact, but just purely, if this was a guy who was in his 3rd year as a pro, if this was a guy who was in his 7th year as a pro and he had a bad training camp, we'd say he's not playing that well yet. Cam, we can accurately say not playing that well yet.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I'm out on him. To Ramrod's point or whatever it was, you don't need to iron your suit yet. Like the funeral is not happening.
Sus, I looked at your face more than Cam Ward during that answer because I was like, dude, you either didn't hear the question because I thought it was a very interesting question. And we'll get into, this is going to be such a meandering conversation. I'm going to try to save some time for the Jeffery Simmons of it all at the end. I agree. So like everybody always asks like, oh, what about underachievement versus overachievement? I'm always like, what about just the teams that just achieve? Yeah. And I think that's kind of where we are on the reaction. It's just react to what you've seen. It's adding data to a file, and you stack data and you build the file, and then you have the thing. But really, as Brian Callahan said, and Cam and everyone else knows, the only way to truly evaluate a quarterback is in a game. And so until the games actually happen, and I'm not even really talking preseason, but at least that's closer, until a game happens, you can't say that a piece of that data that you are collecting is all of a sudden the defining piece of information that will lead to success or failure. Because again, on Wednesday, let's go Wednesday hypothetically. Wednesday, there was a lot of unscripted periods of time and a lot of pressure from Denard Wilson, which is what he likes to do. Technically, that's what Tampa's going to do this weekend as well, or when
much
following
more
weekend.
So, yes.
Following weekend. And all of that was designed to stress test Cam Ward in every possible way, which means they want him throwing the ball. Like, so we'll get to the interceptions here because I don't think the interception individually is that big of a deal. I do think the fact that he gets balls deflected at the line of scrimmage quite often the last 2 days is something he needs to work on.
Yes.
It's something that will be a factor if he does not adjust.
Detour, let's just say this bluntly. The 4 interceptions in the last 2 days. One was a miscommunication with a receiver. That's going to happen in training camp. Him and Chig were not on the same page. That was not a error of judgment. That was an error of communication. One was a ball that deflected off of a helmet because he threw it at a low arm slot. We're going to talk about that when we talk about batted passes. One was a ball that he lofted into bracket coverage that had it been full speed, I imagine the receiver tight end would have run through the ball and knocked it away, and it would have been a deflection. I don't think that the collision would have yielded an interception in live action, but it still was not a great decision. The fourth one was a ball that he tried to throw over the middle through an RPO, got deflected when a linebacker jumped in front of it. So we're not talking 4 judgment interceptions. We're talking 2.5 judgment interceptions.
That's 2. I'd say 2. That's fair. And then the one on Saturday with James Williams, a 5th player, because the interceptions were Gabe Jeudy-Lally on the deflection off Devondre Sweat's helmet. There it was Roger McCreary off the deflection by Cody Barton, the one you're talking about thrown over the middle. Another Darrell Baker caught the pass as the sort of, I guess he was the safety coming over the top, although that's an odd, now that I'm thinking about Baker in the safety role, it's interesting. On sort of like a deep corner route to Josh Wiley. And then James Williams, if you go back and rewatch the tape on that interception on Saturday at Nissan Stadium, it looked like a very bad decision by Cam Ward because there were so many guys there. Callahan on Tuesday said, man, that was just a great play by James Williams. Like, just made a great play. So I don't think any of these are, again, some massive indictment of Cam Ward. For example, there are throws, and I was talking to a couple of different people on the sideline about this that have way more experience coaching in the NFL than either of us have ever had. And like every play, they want him to throw the ball. So even if it's late, even if it's like a deep route to Calvin Ridley, that's a great completion that you might not throw in a game. Like they want you to throw it either way. Just throw it. That's also something we need to discuss because there's too much of the not throwing happening as well. That's another thing that's the one that I am most concerned about because it is tied to what you evaluated about him as a prospect.
Yeah.
Right. Now, all the work ethic, all the stuff that we know about him, it appears like there was a moment at the press conference yesterday. I don't know if you picked up on this. There was I can't remember who asked the question, so I apologize, but it was about sort of the experience at Nissan Stadium maybe, and somebody said that the phrase was like, someone handed you a baby.
I think this was a Wyatt question, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Jim Wyatt. And his face, everyone in the press conference kind of chuckled. We all kind of had like a little, one of those moments. And his face did not move. And I am interested by that because even in a very light, jovial, interesting, and kind of funny moment, he was still all game. It did not register on his face at all that he was given a baby at a Titans practice, and that's interesting to people and kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I think that's indicative of how he's wired, and I think it's fascinating. I think he is wired as a super fascinating dude, very smart, very savvy. I think he's probably wise beyond his years to some degree, I think. And we'll get to the actual execution on the field, but I think it's all there for him to work through all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I think what people need to know is that this was designed to be extremely difficult for him. It was designed to challenge him and stress test him. He didn't pass most of the time. It was 2 really bad practices, but that does not mean he's not going to take that and then learn on Friday, Saturday, Sunday and do something better with that information, which is the point of practice.
I remember there was something I would say a lot when we 2.5 years ago had to spend a lot of time talking about the Will Levis versus Anthony Richardson debate when it looked like the Titans might be in position to draft one of those guys. And I would say over and over again, there is a difference between a quarterback who needs to learn off the field and a quarterback who needs to learn on the field. And I always thought that Levis was a quarterback who needed to learn by making mistakes, and Richardson was a quarterback who needed to learn more about how to play quarterback. And that may be true, that may be false, that may just be bad evaluation on my part. But I think something we're learning about Cam fundamentally is he's somebody who learns on the field. As much as he talks about all the work he's putting in the film room and all of the getting there at 5 a.m. and all of that stuff, he is somebody who believes in his ability and believes to his talent, both to the utmost strength and potentially to a detriment. Because if you want to talk about the low arm slot throws and the batted passes and the throwing into tight windows of it all, he's doing that because it's worked for him before. And is he going to find a way to make it work for him at this level? Is he going to have to adjust and find different things that work? That's all what this journey is. So it's the reason I'm not out on Cam Ward, and I don't think anyone should be out on Cam Ward. It would be ludicrous to be out on Cam Ward after 8 days of training camp, 5 practices, 2 in full pads. We haven't seen him play against another defense yet. We haven't seen him play in full reps up and down a field. We've seen him move a ball about 15 yards. Like, we have to understand perspective matters, but we also have to understand that, look, everything I've heard about when Cam Ward got to Miami is that he showed up and from practice number one, he dominated. And everything you hear about when Cam Ward got to Incarnate Word and when he got to Washington State is from practice number one, from day number one, he was clearly the best guy there. That has not been the case from practice number one. And I'm not trying to play revisionist history. It's possible that people are misremembering his Washington State days. It is possible that people are misremembering something that happened during the COVID lockdowns in 2020 at Incarnate Word. I get all of this. But the expectation is that this is a guy who transferred twice, who started out as a freshman at a 1AA school, and every time he got somewhere, he was the change immediately. He has not been that yet, and that is not an indictment, but it is an observation.
So I'm looking at the 2023 season, because that was his season at Washington State, right? 24
his second year at Washington State. Yeah.
Washington State. So my theory, and I think my theory is a little flawed, because there are plenty of ranked teams on both these schedules. He played some games at Washington State in which, now they almost beat Oregon his first year there.
That 23 season was the year the Pac-12 was just loaded. So that was a good schedule.
Yeah. And in 22 they almost beat Oregon at home by 3, and that would have been his 4th game. But the point is like they played an Arizona team that was pretty good. They lost by like 40 points in that game. They played an Oregon team and a Washington team that were both very, very good. They almost beat that Washington team on the road when they were that was the championship team that went to the national championship game. And so my point is that like outside of maybe 2 to 4 games in his college career, most of which was at Washington State in this conversation, he has faced a team in which his players were better most of the time. He was better than what the other team was putting on the field, especially at Miami. Even the Florida game, maybe Florida was better at the end of the year, but they were not that good of a defense in week 1, and he cooked them right out of the gate. He has always had the better team, the better players. And this is just not going to be the case because the Titans around him are not better than most of the teams they're going to face this year. So all of this is just part of the learning process for a quarterback coming onto a bad roster and a bad team that was the number 1 pick for a reason. I think the things that, like, if you want to pull out something that says, okay, that's the most important thing I've seen, I think it is the holding the football a little too long. I think that's the one thing that probably, because it was the thing I was concerned about in his scouting report and at his college level, that he is just able to do in college because of a number of things. That's the one where we're seeing him roll around a little too much in practice. We're seeing him take sacks that would eventually, they're sacks, right? And that happened way too much the last 2 days. And so that's the thing I want to see him adjust to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like, just hit the 3rd step, hit the 5th step, hit the 7th step, and throw the football. And when he does that, that is actually when he is at his best, I think. When he steps back, plants properly, has good footwork, and rips it over the middle, that's when everyone goes, whoa, like that was a throw right there. So he needs to do a little bit better job of that. And, we'll see if he takes it and learns. And that's all that you can do is, here's some data. Let's see what the new data is next.
And I also think that as we talk about this whole idea of what's the thing that we feel is most important, my response to that would be the moments in 7-on-7s or the moments after a drive in full team where you see Cam come off the field. He's got his helmet on like this, just kind of like resting on the top of his head. And he walks to Tyler Lockett or he walks to Calvin Ridley. And you see the two of them mime football at each other.
Yeah.
Where you see Calvin running a route in play and Cam going back and forth, and they're throwing and they're acting out football. And watching Cam do that with Tyler Lockett, who is an 11-year pro, somewhere thereabouts, and you see him giving direction to a guy, unafraid to give direction and unafraid to receive direction from Tyler Lockett. The same with Calvin Ridley, who I would say more often it looks like Ridley is doing the teaching. He's year 2 in a system. He's arguably the best player on this offense. Like, all of those things need to be mentioned. But like when you see him do it with Chig, when you see him do it with after practice, calling Bryce Oliver and Restrepo and Lockett and all these guys to come run routes with him, that is still the thing that does stand out to me. Because for a guy who seems so unbothered he clearly does care.
It's just internalized.
He just isn't going to let other people know how much he cares. So please do not read anything we're saying as feeding into the he's too nonchalant, he's careless
not at all.
narrative.
Not at all. No.
That is not at all what we believe. Or I don't want to speak for Braden, but I don't believe it's what we believe.
No. And I know a lot of people like that in high-level sports positions. David Poyle, the general manager for the Predators, was one of the quietest and seemingly calmest and most kindest human in a high-level general manager role that I've ever met. Ultra competitive person.
Yeah.
So like, just because you don't show emotion doesn't mean you're not competitive, emotional, care, etc. I agree with it. None. In fact, I think we need to put a moratorium on that conversation. Like, we just need to say to everybody today, nothing Nick and I will ever say will be a complaint about his demeanor ever at any point, good or bad. I don't care about a player's demeanor. It's not that important. Now, with Levis, when he made mistakes and then his demeanor might have kept him from regaining composure, okay, maybe we can touch on that a little bit. But composure ain't the problem for Cam Moore. He never is not composed. And it's frankly, we got a little insight talking about his dad getting up at 4:30 to go to work every day. Like, I think it's clear that this has been instilled in him, this type of personality, this type of approach from a very young age. Again, I saw early in camp, and I think we talked about it on the show in minicamp, where I saw him get intercepted by Cody Barton after looking down like a tight end 5-yard out route. Cody Barton jumped it, watched it. He looked down the receiver, interception. Very next pass play, he came back out onto the field. He has about a 10-yard out to the right, and he stares down the receiver to pull the safety and the linebacker out just a couple of yards, and then goes back behind him directly to an over-the-middle route to a tight end. That, to me, was like showing in real time, I made a mistake. Now I'm going to learn from it.
Yeah.
And if he does that, that's the most important stuff here. Because so I was talking to Holes about this. I just quickly grabbed him as they were coming off practice because I'm fascinated by like tendency in practice, if that's a thing. Because Cam clearly was comfortable over the middle of the field at the start of all of this. And then you started to see mistakes. Cody Barton and James Williams, and these guys are starting to pick up on that, right? So there's tendencies there. And I'm kind of like, well, does each unit, does each period of time sort of live on its own, and sort of like you run those reps, they're sort of like individual plays and moments floating around in space, I guess, or are they all connected like a game is, where first quarter you do one thing, second quarter defense adjusts, third quarter offense adjusts to the adjustment, and so on. And I was like, Nick, hey man, how do you guys treat that? He goes, oh, it's all connected. So we intentionally know he's good over the middle, that the linebackers are going to learn on that. They're going to adjust, and then we need to go outside. And so you're seeing that this past couple of practices where they're going more outside a lot. So they are using practices. They get threaded together, and they function much like a game does. And I would say, like, first week of practice is the first quarter, second week of practice is the second quarter, third week of practice is the third quarter, so on and so forth, is how I feel about that. And I think that's important, that everything is tied together. Mm-hmm. The mistake in week 1 is going to be tied to the correction in week 2, which is tied to the adjustment in week 3. And it's all tied together.
And this might be a segue to more topics that we have, because I know both Braden and I talked to Chig pretty lengthily yesterday. There's a Chig quote that stands out to me about Cam. I don't know if you were standing by for this, but I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1, and you're going to live bleep me on the air because there is a bleep word. But
what kind of word? I don't think I can do it with my voice. I don't think you want me to do
that's
that.
That's what I meant.
You can just say the F word. It's fine.
I don't want to. People don't know that I have a bad sailor's mouth.
just say bleep. Just say bleep.
Chig was asked about Cam's demeanor yesterday, and he said he's just ready to go, man. If he throws a pick, he doesn't really care. It's like a bleep it attitude. He doesn't really care. He's just ready to play ball. He really is just a true football player.
Wish I was recording that.
The ready to go is probably the best description I've heard of Cam.
Yeah.
Which is, he is just ready to go. Every moment he's about to play football. That is what he's doing.
I want him to like step up to the lunch counter at Shotgun Willie's barbecue and just be like, brisket and like a deep corner route, please.
Yeah, it's ready. Pretty much just the Peyton Manning cut that meat commercial. He is always in football mode. If a game breaks out, he will be there with his arm. And so Is he playing well right now? We can all agree, not up to the standard of what a number one pick is supposed to be up to. But there is a reason that, off the top of your head, Braden, the AP NFL Rookie of the Year award has been given out every year since 1959. How many times has the number one pick actually won it?
Oh, Geek Corner, random drive-by Geek Corner. So number one pick winning the AP Rookie of the Year since 59?
Yeah, AP Offensive Rookie of the Year.
So 65 years. I'm gonna say like 18 times.
6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just 6. In recent years, only 3 quarterbacks have ever done it. It's Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray. You also had Earl Campbell, George Rogers, and Billy Sims.
The greatest running back in Titans history.
But those are the only number one overall picks to win AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. It is the same standard we have for the Heisman Trophy. If you are expected to be the best, it is very hard to win that award. The expectations for Cam, contrary to what you're hearing on reports that say nobody's talking about him, the expectations for Cam are quite high. He was the number one pick in the National Football League's player draft. The expectations for that mean you are expected to be quite good. He hasn't lived up to them yet, but that does not mean that he will not. That does not mean that he cannot, and that does not mean that he's not putting in the work to do it.
It also doesn't mean anything about his ability to handle that pressure.
Correct.
Because I think he is totally capable of handling it.
Totally.
Again, this all comes down to, on 3rd and 7 in week 14 on the road, can you get the football to the right place at the right split second? That's all. That's all it is. And I think he is wired in a way to do that. It doesn't mean you physically can. Because how many great players don't succeed in the NFL all the time? How many really good players end up having really good careers but can't at the first stop because the team is awful? How many jokes do we make about the Jets breaking quarterbacks all the time? And so, like Sam Darnold goes on to be a really good player when he's not with the Jets. And I'm not saying that the Titans are that. I think there's, I think you'd need to be real bad for much longer to be the Jets. But there's so much more to it. So anyway, I think the struggle is real. The concerns are worth noting, but just react.
Yeah.
No overreacting, no underreacting, just react. In fact, that's what Cam does. No highs, no lows, just right there. Callahan did say, I think, and I don't know, the way I couched it was they are throwing things at him from a playbook install language preparation standpoint 3 to 4 times faster than they were doing it in minicamp. So it's coming real fast for him right now. So this is all learned by fire, and that's the job. That's the job.
Let's just say it this way, end it this way. If you guys have more actual specific things you'd like to know about Cam and you're watching live, fire in the comments. Sure. We will answer them, but we are probably going to not talk about Cam for the next half an hour.
All right. So you are interested in the winning the individual rep and the competition element that Brian Callahan has instilled in this team, but also how do you do that while also maintaining a big picture view of where you're going?
Yeah, I'll set this up. Do you want to do the quote first? Or do you want me to set this up with the pitch first?
Why don't I play? You want me to play Chig real fast? This is your 2 questions to Chig. If you want.
Sure, play that, and then I'll give some context.
Okay, so here was, and I've got some other stuff from Chig as well, but here was Nick asking a couple of questions around this topic to Titans tight end Chig Okonkwo.
I mean, yeah, we're just every day we go out there and compete. Like you said, I mean, the results can't, be it because, I mean, our defense plays a specific defense. We're not going to see that the entire year. So we can't just, if certain things aren't working against our defense, we can't just hang our head and be like, man, we suck at this. We got to understand that, we're going against, other teams when it comes time to that, and we will have success with other plays.
Does that come natural, or is it kind of something you have to teach yourself to think that way?
Probably got to teach yourself to think that way, because just naturally, like, if you're not, winning, like, you start to feel like, maybe something's wrong, but you got to understand, like, certain plays, certain things. Like, our defense is really keyed in on certain stuff, so a lot of times they won't give up a lot, and I can't really hang your head on it.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So I don't know if other people feel this way, but to me, the topic sentence of Titans training camp was said by Chad Brinker on the Tuesday before training camp started. I think he said it twice. You key in when somebody repeats themselves. The line is, you are what you emphasize. That stands out to me. That sounds like a thing you would put on the wall of a gymnasium to remind players your goals for the year. You are what you emphasize. And based off, if you go back to our shows we were doing in April and May and June and July, it's still July, what were we talking about? What were the Titans emphasizing? The thing the Titans were emphasizing most was day-to-day, play-to-play, rep-to-rep competition, was winning and losing. The issue that needed to be rooted out were pre-snap penalties, were unforced turnovers, were mental errors that lead to negative plays. The things that need to be fixed. And the Titans' conclusion, Brian Callahan's conclusion, was the way to fix those errors was by emphasizing the minutia, was by assigning a point value to everything that happens on every play, for rewarding people for doing things well in the moment and penalizing people for doing things poorly in the moment. And then it stands out to me that yesterday, Brian Callahan is asked about day-to-day winners and losers. Is Cam Ward struggling on Tuesday? How does he respond on Wednesday type topic? And his response is, well, I think it's a little overblown when you focus on the day-to-day winners and losers. You can't put too much focus into one practice. You have to have the long view on focusing on getting better every day. You don't want somebody to play, his phrase was play with a governor on, to slow themselves down because they're afraid of making a mistake. And that, to me, is a really, really tough tightrope to walk. It's borderline oxymoronic.
There's a natural tension between those two things. Yeah.
To say we want people to be graded for their wins and losses. We want people to be judged by their output and be competitive about that output. But we don't want people to fixate on that output. You are what you emphasize. The Titans are emphasizing things that juxtapose against each other, which is why I think that clip we just played you from Chig is really, really fascinating. Because you do have to teach yourself how to not feel like a failure. Every day of training camp, and I think there's a comment up from 20 minutes ago, I don't know if you can find it, but every day of training camp, you are confronted with the idea of, well, the offense won today. That means the defense lost today. Well, the defense won today. That means the offense lost today. 50% of your players are going to walk off the field after a training camp process feeling like a friggin' loser. And when you are emphasizing minute by minute, second by second results, it's hard to not ingrain loserdom. But the Titans don't want that to ingrain. They want to focus on what comes next. All of this, to me, is training camp talk. Like, it is clearly something that only matters this time of year. But I do think it's fascinating to poll players. I talked to Cam Ward about this. I talked to Amani Hooker about this. I obviously talked to Chig about this. It's interesting.
Hooker did not help your story.
Hooker gave a somewhat insightful answer about the idea of a win is a win, a loss is a loss. It's how you respond that matters. And I think that is fundamentally how the Titans are trying to instill this. That's their workaround to the juxtaposition.
Well, let me ask you one question. Is it possible that, because I agree, focusing on the granular minutia of a rep and then stepping back and saying, but that doesn't matter. The big picture matters. They are in conflict. But is it possible that in the off season you emphasize the granular and the day-to-day to sort of keep a player or keep a team in a mental place, in a mindset way, in a mode that keeps you on because like you have to find extra ways to motivate yourself in the offseason when there's no games, when you're not getting graded or paid on any of the stuff that you're supposed to be doing. It's a way to keep everyone focused. Whereas then when you get to training camp, there's 40 guys trying to win a job, so their livelihood is on the line. And then there's the guys who are looking for new contracts, Chig and some of the other guys. And then there's the guys who are rookies who are trying to earn their spot on the starting lineup, if you think their roster spot is safe. So I'm curious. I'm wondering if there's a slight pivot though to, or if you can. Maybe you can't run training camp without focusing on the granular, but also recognizing the big picture. Maybe there's a shift in the emphasis to some degree.
And I think there is.
Okay.
I think that there is less of a focus on training camp leadership pods than there were on mini camp leadership pods. Like, we understand that has changed. But the part that I keep going back to is you are what you emphasize. The Titans' emphasis for the entire offseason was granularity. And now the emphasis, whether it has shifted whole cloth or has shifted just a little bit, is, I don't want to say it's convoluting things, but it is making things a little bit more difficult to say what the Titans are. Yeah. Because you're either abandoning what you wanted your identity to be, how you wanted the players to behave for so long, or you are complicating how you wanted the players to behave. And
basically, you're questioning Brian Callahan's leadership, is what you're saying.
I don't want to be, is the thing.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I hear these things, and maybe I'm the only person hung up on it, but I do think it is a natural difficulty, to go back to what Chig said, to lose a rep and know that rep is being graded, and know that rep was not good, and to not internalize that. And we talked about it with Cam for a long time. He is good at not internalizing those things.
Very much so.
I don't know for a fact that all 91 players on this roster are good at not internalizing the momentary failures. And I think that, as I follow training camp over these next 3-4 weeks, that is the thing that I will personally be keyed into the most.
Yeah. I think Cam is a unicorn on that. So if you're asking me to guess how many of the 91 are wired like Cam at his age in particular, I would say it's a fairly small percentage. So unless that's just part of being an NFL player, that you act to Chig's point, you have to teach yourself this. Maybe that's a part of life in the NFL, period.
Yeah.
Full stop.
I think
which is possible. Sean says, are you guys sensing urgency with this team? That's a really interesting question based on sort of the aura, as the kids say, the vibe that I was picking up off some players, in particular, the ones I talked to, Jeffery Simmons, Amani Hooker, and Chig. So how about this? Let's hear from Jeffery Simmons coming off the practice field on Tuesday. He's talking about being in the best shape of his life ever. I followed up with a question about his sort of mental state, and he was as defensive tackle as he could be. But here was Simmons coming off the field on Tuesday.
I can really work on, like I said, my power moves, setting up all my finesse moves. So it felt good. The energy was great. The biggest thing when you're talking about pads and you're talking about consistency, it's like, how can we come out here with the same energy tomorrow? Same thing I just told the D-line. Like, and I've been, we got to live on it, that the way we go, the defense go, the way the offensive line go, the offense goes. So we got to keep honing in on that big man's running football team. And it started with us. It's a great battle. Having Zeitler, who's been playing this league for a long time, we going against each other, one-on-one. I win, he win. Just a battle, and that's what I want, that's what he want, and that's what we talking to each other. That's a great thing about having vets. That's a great thing about having guys who want to work together for one common goal, and that's to win. So.
And Jeff, with that, the physicality there in the trenches, how would you describe the level going up against some of these new offensive linemen?
Oh, it's great. I've been going against Zeitler a couple of years now. I mean, last year we just played Detroit. I went against him, and now to have him on the team, to see what he's thinking, to know kind of how teams want to block me. And props to Coach Callahan as well. Like, I remember last year a couple of times I'm walking down the hall. Like, how are you game planning me when you're with the Browns? Like, now I know kind of how to set up different moves. I mean, everybody knows me get the slide. So how can I also be affecting the pass game with the slide and stuff of that nature? So just to be able to go against them guys is good. Even I was telling JC, he looked comfortable. He looked like he leaner, all of that. Like, it's just about trying to be together, compete with each other at a high level, but also like I said, we here for one common goal. And like I said, it's been so good so far. Even in the walkthroughs, we going. It's like sometimes we had to tell slow down, and that's just guys trying to work their stuff. They trying to work on their stuff. So it's been good. Like I said, having Zeitler, Dan, who played a lot of football, and even guys that have been here, like Peter and them, like, we don't compete, but it's for Sundays.
So, first of all, that's just him coming off the practice field. He also talked to Rexroad and myself about his new bod being super thin, for him, being the best shape of his life, what that allows him to do. He went into great detail on how to approach collapsing the pocket and sort of the back foot, front shoulder of the quarterback of it all. It was super interesting stuff. First, I want to say, I think he talked about Zeitler. Like he dominated Kevin Zeitler on Tuesday. I know you went and watched some of the one-on-one, so I'll let you chime in on that. I know Oladejo did not necessarily have as good a day there, but he's been everywhere in the first week and a half of practice. I think Simmons has been the best player on the team, full stop, it's not even close. I think Ridley's been the best offensive player, and I think Simmons has been the best player on the team, and it feels different.
I was drawing an asterisk.
Okay. All right. We'll get to the asterisk in a second. I think it's what you want, but to the earlier question from Sean about are you sensing urgency with this team? Here's what's really interesting to me, and I'm the only one maybe that is seeing this, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I think Jeff, and I did ask him after Joe asked him about like his new bod. I was like, well, are you any different mentally? And he said he kind of kept it between the lines. He was like, on the field, you got to have the same mentality. It's a kill mentality. It's an FU mentality. Like he was doing bleeps as well. And that's not really what I meant. I really meant like his approach, his maturity, his like, where is he at mentally? Is he any different at his age now? And he feels different to me. I don't know about you. And the point that Sean asked about, are you guys sensing urgency with this team? The key is I don't sense urgency, but I think that's good because I feel like there's this quiet confidence about some of these guys, Jeffery Simmons included, which when you are healthier and quicker and more explosive and more dominant, that comes with confidence. And I just think Simmons comes off in that conversation with me and with the rest of the media that like I think he's in a different place. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that for sure because I've not asked him specifically. I needed to reword my question. And he'd answered a lot of questions, but I feel like there's a different, like it's not mentality. There's just something there. I don't know if it's maturity. I don't know if it's leadership. I don't know if it's wisdom, a calmness about him.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and destroys people during the games or during the practice reps. And so I think that is, I'm going to try to figure out if that is running through the entire roster or not, or if this is just the Jeffery Simmons thing. Cause that's the vibe I got from Big Jeff on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to frame it. I will say to Sean's question, look, if this team is good, it is not going to be because of how urgent they are. If this team is bad, it is not going to be because of how non-urgent they are. Urgency is a thing that is kind of just a buzzword thrown around for polish. If you're running smoothly, if you're running quickly, it seems urgent. If you're running
right.
non-efficiently, it looks less urgent. But I would say the player I have seen Jeffery Simmons be has been the exact kind of disruptive that the Titans need him to be, has been the exact sort of thing you need from a player who can arguably be among the 5 best players at his position on planet Earth. The asterisk I drew, if I am tier ranking the best Titans I have seen this training camp, Jeffery Simmons is in the top tier. I would probably put Peter Skoronski even with him. Skoronski has had a really good camp so far.
He's been and he also has his body looks a little different too.
And I don't want that to go unnoticed.
No, very much.
A lot of you guys are imagining they go against each other a lot. They don't as much as you think.
It's Kevin Zeitler. So.
Yeah, it's Zeitler a lot. Skoronski in one-on-ones has looked really good. Latham in one-on-ones has looked very good. And you want to talk about body transformations, that has been
same
something
thing
there as well. So there have been more players that have looked good than just Jeff. But if Jeff is the one who stirs the drink, if that is the power we give him, his attitude shift, and I know you've got some quotes on this that we can probably clip to, but his attitude shift has been something of value. And if we're calling it an attitude shift, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
no, I'm not there yet. It's not attitude. It's almost like philosophical.
Yeah.
Like it's like you reach a certain age and certain things don't register with you anymore. The other new things you prioritize, you are what you emphasize, right? And so I just think I don't know. There's sometimes you talk to someone and you just get a different vibe.
Yeah.
And he was coming off the field after a great day of practice, so certainly some confidence there. He was going into great detail, more so than I remember him being. And just like when you put the whole thing together. I'm in shape. I had a great practice. I know that. I think ultimately, if the team is going to get better, I think Jeffery Simmons, in his own development and evolution and maturity, whatever that is, has to know that he is the best player and needs to be the best player.
Yeah. I've talked about this before. Look, the way the Titans defense is set up, and I'll do this in 60 seconds. The entire philosophy of the Titans defense hinges on if you can disrupt from the middle, if Simmons and Sweat can collapse a pocket from the inside, and you have aggressive cornerback play on the outside. If teams can't get off the edge, if you have big edge rushers, you set the edge, you collapse the middle, you force them to throw at aggressive corners. Aggressive corners are going to make plays. Now, are you going to get burnt? We shall see. But this all hinges on teams not being able to use the middle of the field. And if Jeffery Simmons is having the year that he has indicated he might be able to through 2 days, the first qualifier to can this be a good defense is looking good.
Yep.
That's what matters.
Yeah, it's the order of operations, right? You can't get to the other things if you don't have 98 looking
if
good.
They can go up the middle, then the cornerback stuff doesn't matter. The big edge players doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Jeff matters. It's number one.
And so when I asked, and this is sort of the new attitude that I want to get to kind of wrap up the show here, because I don't know for a fact that it's just permeating every corner of the building. I don't know, but I got this sense from Jeff. And so then I wanted to talk to a few other guys that have been around a little bit longer. And so yesterday after practice, and you can see all these clips too on the Instagram account and the YouTube Shorts page. So if you want to go watch a lot of these, I'm not going to play all of them. What's interesting is that when I asked Chig about basically my question is like, hey, every team has its own personality, and you kind of figure out that personality through training camp, and then you settle on an identity and a personality, and a lot of that has to be, what is that like? And his answer was, this is now, which I thought was interesting. He's couching it in it being different, that it is now a player-driven culture of accountability inside the locker room. We know Vrabel was very much about holding other people accountable at all times. That was his vibe. And it seems like Chig, his first answer was basically, well, no, this is a player-driven accountability process now that we control this and that we have to decide for ourselves what this is all about, which is, to me, Chig maturing into the last year of his first contract. He looks physically very good, and I'm sure he wants to earn a deal from the Titans or elsewhere. So then I immediately walked over to Amani Hooker, and I kind of asked him the same question, and he didn't give as long and as thoughtful of an answer, but there's a line in his answer that I'll post on the YouTube page and on the social feeds where he basically is just like, but because when you have players that are about themselves and are about their ego, you will not win games. And I thought it was interesting that he is he's framing the current culture and the current identity and the current personality and attitude and demeanor in the locker room. He's kind of framing it against the past.
Sure.
Is how I took it. That's not an indictment of anything. It doesn't mean like so-and-so coach was bad or the DB's coach was bad or the general manager was bad. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means he is noticing something that is different. Chig is noticing something that is different, and I am noticing something different in Jeffery Simmons. Is this all too much and means absolutely nothing? Maybe. But it feels like there is a calmness about some of these veteran players that I don't think, and I'm assuming being coached by Vrabel is not calm. But there's a sense of like quiet confidence, I think, not urgency, but quiet confidence. I don't know if that translates to wins or losses, but it's a little bit different, and they are saying as much in their conversations with us.
Yeah, the main thing that's going to translate to wins and losses is good football players, bad football players, and fundamentally, we all understand the Titans do not have the strongest roster in the NFL.
Right.
Can the Titans make up some stuff on the margins? Sure. Have they had to in the past? Absolutely. We'll see how much this team can make up things on the margins, but I don't want to undercut what we've been talking about, because I do think that what is an offseason for, if not making the most of what you have? And the Titans are, in short, trying to make the most of what they have.
Yeah.
We'll see how good it stacks up next week in Tampa, which I think should be a really fascinating test because of the way Tampa runs things. They have a lot of similarities to the Titans, but also a lot of strengths that the Titans don't have.
Yep.
So it should be a nice take the donut off the bat and swing situation. But yeah, I want to tell you that what we're seeing matters, but I also want to let you know a lot of it's just going to come down to other teams have a lot more.
And I realize that you and I, and maybe not the entire audience, but hopefully this is why you listen to the show, that I am fascinated by the psychology of a locker room.
Yeah.
I am fascinated by what makes a group of people better or worse than they're supposed to be. And in the NFL, where almost all the rosters and the schedules are kind of similar, relatively speaking, in college, it's so different, right? The best team and the best schedule is so different than the worst and the worst. There's huge discrepancies in talent, whereas the NFL, it appears that there are huge discrepancies in talent, but this is still the best, 700 athletes on the planet playing this one sport. And so it is, the margins are much smaller. And so it comes down to practice and focus and personality and culture and belief. And all this other stuff. So that is a lot of times what can make a team a good team or a bad team.
I would agree.
And Eddie says, do they need a training camp fight? And all of this does have to be couched in the fact that when you almost every organization swings back the opposite direction. If you fire the disciplinarian, you generally hire the players coach. And Brian Callahan is very clearly a players coach. And so the question is do you swing too far, or is it the right psychology for this group? And you just don't know. And that's the problem, is that all of this could be really smart and really evolved thinking, and it might cost the team because they're not hard enough or something like that. You know what I mean? So we'll see what it means. I'm just picking up on stuff, and I thought Hooker saying, like, he referenced guys with egos, hard to win, and Chig talked about it, a new player-driven identity. I think that's noticeable from the previous regimes because all three of those guys have been through multiple regimes, and so I thought that part is they have something to compare it to. How about this? Let's talk actual on the field.
Yeah.
Quickly here, I want to know players that you think are moving up, players that are moving down. This can be at the back of the roster. This can be at the top of the roster. I want to hear what you have to say.
Top of the roster guys, the people who I think have made the best cases for themselves. We talked about Skoronski. We talked about Latham, both looking better. I think that the two day two rookies, Oladejo and Winston, have both acquitted themselves quite well. Winston more so with the pads on, Oladejo more so when the pads weren't on. But that adjustment is natural for a defensive interior or front seven players. That's the term I'm looking for. I think those two have played quite well. And Van Jefferson continues to be somebody who I think is going to have an outsized role compared to maybe what we expected when he was signed. As we continue down the roster a little bit more, I would point out there are still some discrepancies on the second team offensive line that is unsettled. So keep your eye there. I think on the second team on defense, or shall we call it the reserve squads, we're not revealing a depth chart or anything. Right. But I do think that there are some players who are getting more significant play than maybe I expected. Guys like Kendall Brooks at safety, guys like Curtis Jacobs at linebacker, some of the defensive tackles. I think that like Isaiah Rakes is a guy who has gotten a bigger role. He was hurt yesterday, so he didn't practice, but that's a guy who played a little bit more than I expected. Gabe Judulali is somebody who has gotten a little bit more play. I think he was forgotten in the shuffle that he lasted on the roster for a long time last season.
You like what you've seen from Darryl Baker?
I do. I have some trepidations if he's your number 2 corner heading into week 1. Obviously,
this team needs Cushenberry and Snead.
You'd prefer it if Snead was healthy, but
how close is that?
He says he's close. He says he's close. I don't know, man. I think that there are some guys to keep an eye on that maybe we haven't talked much about, and then there are some guys that we just automatically pencil into the roster who maybe there's a little more competition than we would have expected. Think somebody like Mike Brown, who's just always on the roster. Think somebody like Julius Chestnut, who's just always on the roster. If
the best throw from Cam Ward on Wednesday was to Jaquan Jackson on a seam route down the middle, and he dropped it.
And so, like, if you're talking about a guy who has surplus special teams value at an offensive skill position where he's probably not going to have too much of an offensive role, Chestnut's been that guy for a while. Could James Prochet be that guy? I could see that role being a 1-for-1 trade-off, just a 7th receiver instead of a 4th running back.
Jordan, props for the joke here. Snead is
Snead's-
close to returning like Nashville is close to getting an MLB team. I don't think that's factually correct, but a very good joke.
Jordan, I appreciate that all Jordan does in the comments is try and fire off jokes that we'll notice. It's like a 1 out of 5 gets put up there.
Here we go.
But-
Rexford talks about Jeff like he had Jared from Subway body transformation. I don't know if now's the time to go to the Jared jokes.
I don't know.
Subway jokes.
Almost all of these comments I'm
When
reading.
Geek Corner turns into Pedantic Corner.
Almost all of these voices I'm reading in my like Dennis Miller impression in my head, which is like a 1988 Dennis Miller. Geek Corner, turn it into Pedantic Corner. Like it's very much that delivery, so I appreciate it. But yeah, look, there are some guys on the rise. One of my go-to karaoke songs.
Jordan says, I can't stop singing Suss's hat to the tune of Teenage Dirtbag, which says Teenage Grandpa on it. Your hat, I believe, right?
It's a 30 Rock joke. But yeah, I there are guys on the rise. There are guys who I could see not making it out of surprise. But for the most part, I'll throw one more out there. Cedric Gray has actually seen his usage go up a little bit day by day. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I think
Williams and Gray seem to be doing the things you want them to do if you are looking at where they were drafted last year.
Yeah, I think that there is a foregone conclusion that in the pecking order, James Williams is 2 and Cedric Gray is 3. I believe that to be true, but I do think that there is a world where Cedric Gray could close that gap.
There's still much to be decided. It's how I would say it. So part of the reason I'm just thinking this, because it's like, I know people want to hear about players and they want to hear about plays and specific parts of the team. I do feel like, and maybe, I don't know how you feel, you've covered a lot more training camps in general, but I do feel like the first week or two is about vibes. It's about energy. It's about personality. It's about culture. Because you don't want to, as we've already said, overreact to some small element of a team drill. Like red zone yesterday, awful. Maybe the worst. I think you looked at me and was like, that might be the worst session that Cam has had at any point as a Titan. And the best throws were like Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle. Yeah. It was bad. It was bad. And so you don't want to put too much on one little 2.5 minute, 3 minute football practice session. And so we're trying not to overreact to that stuff. But I do think the first 10 days or so, you're trying to figure out the personality of the team and figure out how it all works together from a personality standpoint. Then I think once you have 2 or 3 weeks of data, beginning next week and the next week after that, is when you can start to make more definitive football statements, is how I feel. So hope, again, if you guys are upset with our long meandering sort of mental side of the game conversations today, I feel like that's the point of the first few weeks of camp, is everyone's just trying to get into the flow of it all.
Yeah.
And then you have more to learn as you start to stack 10, 12, 15 practices.
Yeah. And that is a nice segue to something that I want to say at the end of this. Let's see if this comment works. Well, nope. I failed to post a comment. No, I was just sending dates and times. Let's see.
You do that. I'm going to say Sinkers.
I'm private chatting it to you whenever
you do that. I'm going to say Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the best brisket in the city. It, like, as voted on by everybody. It's fantastic. It's very real. Many people are talking about it. Open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, and come out on August 9th to the Sinkers Beverages 40th birthday party after Tomato Fest on Saturday. It's going to be a ton of fun. Tickets are $10. As I've said, all the money goes to charity. Lots of fun stuff going to happen there. And come hang out. We can talk Titans. It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
and speaking of hanging out and talking Titans, as a cat walks in front of my face, I mentioned last week, I am going to try to put together some Zoom calls with Titans fans to talk about their impressions on the team, talk about their impressions on the trajectory of the franchise, talk about how you feel about being a Titans fan. I have set 3 times over the next couple of days. If anyone is available, please let me know. August the 1st, that is Friday, that is tomorrow, at noon, lunch chat. I'll talk. August the 1st at 6 p.m., that is tomorrow, dinner chat. I'll talk. Sunday, August
a nice dinner chat.
A nice dinner chat. Sunday, August the 3rd at 3 p.m., I will chat. If you are available and would like to talk about how you feel about the Titans, send me an email at nsus@gannett.com. That is right there in the comments, courtesy of Braden. Tell me any time of those 3 that you are available to sign up for, and send me that email. I will respond with the Zoom link and the passcode for you to come in. Come hang. We'll talk about the Titans. We'll talk about the survey I put out that I know some of you guys filled out. If you haven't filled it out, I appreciate it. But I tweeted it. Go find the survey link. Take a vote. Survey's still open. Poll's still open. I want to hear your perspective on the Titans. I think that is an under-discussed part of fandom, is how fans actually feel. We tell you guys how to feel a lot. I want to know how you guys feel directly. Please email me. Please reach out. If there is another way that you know how to contact me, feel free to contact me that way. I don't know how that would work, but we'll figure that out. Please talk to me. I have been told from off screen that I sound like a conspiracy theorist. I do not know how that works, but it might be my cadence. It might be my general look and demeanor. Either way,
It's just my face. It's
just
face.
my generalities. But yes, if you guys have any interest in participating, reach out to me, reach out to Braden, and he can direct you to me. We will talk, because I'm really interested in hearing how Titans fans feel about the Tennessee Titans.
You do good work, my guy. You do good work. So everybody, Tennessean.com, subscribe there. Read his good stuff there. I know you got something that maybe it's out already about our conversation today about the granular versus the big picture. So check that out as well. Tennessean.com, pay for good journalism, Sinkers Beverages, and all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network, Music City Audible, the Hot Read podcast. There's going to be an announcement coming. I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, but we're going to have an announcement coming on the Hot Read podcast. We're going to have some more stuff on the YouTube page, and the Hot Read's going to have a new version. It's going to be reborn again for the third time. And so we got plans for you guys for the season, so stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun. And get the YouTube. We really could use your support on the YouTube page, because that is where we're going to have some new stuff for you that's going to be exclusive from a film study standpoint and a game standpoint coming up on for the season. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Check all that stuff out. I think that's everything for now. We have 3 practices over the weekend, which is crazy. So when PK and I get together on Monday, we should have a lot to discuss. And my weekend schedule just got ruined. So other than that, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Thanks for jumping into the comments. 5-star review only, please, because if you do not give us 5 stars, you are a hater. For Nick, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you on Monday.